in Oklahoma City. I am interviewing one of our most famous artists, if not the most famous artist, known for our state. It is an honor that I haven't had before. Mr. Woody Crumbo, W-O-O-D-Y-C-R-U-M-B-O, Crumbo, Mr. Woody Crumbo. Mr. Crumbo, do you mind if I call you Woody on this interview?
That's fine.
Thank you. We have a little outline here that we have discussed, and I'm going to let him follow that as he sees fit. I'd like very much to know your Indian name, but you'll have to spell it.
You want me to go ahead? I'm Woody Crumbo, Potawatomie, Indian descent, and that's Potawatomies are located around Shawnee, pretty close to Shawnee, Oklahoma, and the county there is named after the Potawatomi Indians, Potawatomi County. And I was born in 1912 and grew up around over west of Tulsa until I was 17. Then I went to Chilocco Indian School, and I stayed there at Chilocco Indian School for almost 4 years, and then changed schools, went to Wichita Indian School, which name was American Indian Institute. And it was a small school that had a full staff of teachers for only 35 picked students from over the United States. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to school there.
We want to know something about your father and your mother. And with Crumbo, don't you have an Indian meaning or an Indian name?
Well, my father's name was Alex Crumbo, and my mother was Mary Hurd. And so my mother came down from the reservation area up in Kansas, and they took land allotments down here in Oklahoma. And
What year did they take their land?
I don't really know what year they took land. I think it was 1889 or 91, somewhere along in there. But after they gave out all the land, then apparently they took the surplus land and opened it to settlement. So they stopped allotting the younger Indians that was born after that date, roughly around 1890, 91. And I became interested in painting while I was going to school. I danced all over the country with the Kiowa boys and several other dance groups, Indian dance groups. And while I was associated with the Kiowa Indian boys, who was started into painting by Miss Susie Peters, who had started, she's a mother of Indian art in Oklahoma, and she started those young Kiowa Indians to paint when they were just youngsters. And then by the time I came along, they were already painting, and I was inspired by seeing their work. And I knew Miss Peters real well. She used to be in charge of groups, dancers. She'd take us to or make contracts for us to dance like places like Gallup Intertribal Ceremonial in the Texas Centennial, and then just a whole lot of other programs that she would line up for us. Mostly women's clubs like the Daughters of American Revolution and clubs like that. Now, I went to Wichita University after I graduated from high school, this Indian high school at Wichita. The high school was located just across the road from the Wichita University, so I boarded at the high school and went to college at Wichita. Went there for 3 years, and then finally came down to Oklahoma University for 2 more years of college work. And after I finished college, I went to Bacone as director of art there. That would be 1938, and I was there 3 years, a little better. And
did you have any outstanding students that have achieved something?
well, I had a lot of outstanding students, and I guess perhaps the most famous is Willard Stone, stone carver, and I mean wood carver, and he studied there. I had him for 3 years in school, and taught him all time that I was there at Bacone. And
didn't he leave school for a while and then come back?
Well, he left school for a while, every once in a while, and then come back. So he was a good student. He wasn't interested too much in academic work, but he was very much interested in art, especially in sculpture and carving. And so that's what he did mostly in school.
Did you do academic work as well as the art?
Yeah. Yeah, it was required, you know.
Certain amount.
Yeah, a certain amount of.
But I thought you were a special student in art.
Well, I took regular art classes just like any other art student.
Did you study at OU?
Well, I studied with Edith Mayer and Miss Kritzer and Joe Taylor in sculpturing, and there was a number of other teachers. I didn't study with Mr. Jacobson. He was the head of the art department. But yeah, and Mrs. Mayer and Miss Kritzer and Joe Taylor were my main teachers. Of course, I took a class or two under Leonard Good and one or two others, but I mostly studied sculpture and painting and etching.
Which one encouraged you the most?
Well, they all three.
They made their contributions.
Yeah, all three of them. But of course, my great teacher was Clayton Henry Staples at Wichita University. He's the one that really taught me more than any other teachers.
He was the one that made you believe you could.
Yeah, Mr. Staples was just a real good teacher. You know, there's a lot of teachers, but there's just a few really top teachers, one that can really inspire a student and really teach them to where they grasp what they have to offer.
Best out of
Yeah.
That's right.
And then, of course, after I got through school, as I said a while ago, I went to Bacone College. And then, while I was there, I took leave of absence and went to Washington, D.C., where I painted 6 large murals in the new Department Interior building. And that was done in 1939. And then the following year,
Did those have a theme of some kind, Woody?
just Indian art.
Just Indian art?
Yeah.
Along what line were you thinking?
Well, I had mostly animals, horses, buffalo hunt, and peony birds, and things of that kind, deer. I like to do animals. And then the next year I painted a mural in the Nowata, Oklahoma post office, and it's still there and looks good. And
its name? Does it have one?
Yeah, the name of the mural in the post office at Nowata is the Rainbow, because it shows some Indians, 3 Indians on horses, and they're looking at a rainbow and looking across the mesas, and a rainbow is in sight, and one of them's pointing at it. So, and then I had a lot of shows all over the United States, and it seemed to me that it was needed more Indian art in the schools clear across the United States. But it's pretty hard to touch all of the schools that needed to be touched. So I put out the idea, at high school and college, and so I developed a series of prints, original silk screens and etchings, and I endeavored to, as a one-man project, to educate as many American students as possible to Indian art. So I had these silk screens and etchings, and I sent them out to. I had as many as from 30 to 50 shows a month across the United States, and each show was a full 30-day show, and I could do that with prints. And so I had the price down low enough that if a student wanted to miss a meal or two, well, they could own an original piece of artwork, Indian artwork. And most everywhere I go, I run into people now, and of course that's been about 25, almost 30 years ago when I started that. So those students, of course, when I see them every once in a while, they tell me, of course I wouldn't know them otherwise, but they come up and introduce themselves generally and tell me that at certain year they bought a picture of mine while they were students at one of the schools. I had the exhibits in the colleges, universities, art schools, parochial schools, and junior colleges. I just covered the whole country. And I think it probably had more to do with the interest in Indian art than any other thing that has ever happened, because there were so many hundreds of thousands of people got to see my work and be able to acquire some at a very low price.
Did you realize then that was making you such a well-known?
I didn't pay any attention to that. I was more interested in seeing the work go out. Yeah, right. Indian art represented. And
Oklahoma should certainly be the very hotbed and center of that.
Well, I think that, like I said a while ago, did more to stimulate people in Indian art than any other thing, because there were so many students that could own a piece of artwork. Now, when I run onto these people, they come from all parts of the United States, and the east, west, north, and south, and from coast to coast, because I had shows almost every college in the United States, and they tell me what they bought at that time when they were a student, and they tell me where their picture is hanging today. So I feel that they're really proud of the picture, because they always tell me right where it's hanging today, and they're very proud that.
Which were some of your favorites?
Well, Spirit Horse I liked real well. It's a picture of a horse. It's more of an impression of a horse, blue horse, and the Indians kind of term spirit as blue. So this blue spirit is blue horse. They kind of go together. So I just call the picture Spirit Horse. And then I like the picture of Spotted Wolf's Last Request, because it shows a old burial scene of a young Sioux Indian boy that was killed in Luxembourg when he was 21 years old. And he'd written a letter to his folks stating that if he was killed and if they had a victory parade and all, he wanted a soldier to go first carrying the American flag in the parade. And then he wanted a cowboy to go next and lead his horse with a saddle and bridle on it. And he said, I'll be riding that horse in the victory parade. And he also expressed some love for the old ways of the Indian. So when they had this burial, they actually enacted the whole thing. When his body came back, they had this scaffold burial, and they went through the whole thing just like they would have under Indian burial. And then, of course, after the Indian ceremonies and all were finished, then the military took over, and they had interned him in the military with military honors and attendance. So
but
he's that was after the
wish had been granted.
Yeah, after they had the Indian burial.
What tribe did you say was Sioux?
He was Sioux, and when I read the letter.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, when I read the letter, I decided to paint a picture, but a good many years afterward before I actually finished the picture. So I painted an awful lot of pictures, and
Where is the original of that?
The original belongs to the Cochare Indian Museum in Colorado, but right at the present time it's on a national tour showing the Indians' participation in the wars. And it emanates, this show emanates from Flint, Michigan Museum. They borrowed the picture and sponsoring the showing of it. It doesn't come into Oklahoma at all.
But it comes home where, I mean...
It'll be back after the centennial year is finished. It goes to places like Los Angeles and Phoenix and a number of other museums, but it was not shown here in Oklahoma.
It usually hangs at La Junta?
Yeah, at La Junta. It hangs there. It belongs to the Cochare Indian Dance Group Museum. And
I want to see that.
yeah, it's a very wonderful museum.
How large is
youngsters.
the actual?
Well, they're you mean the painting?
Yes.
It's 50-inch wide canvas, and so I had lithographs made from it. So there again, I could touch more people with Indian art. You see what happens if you paint one picture and sell it, generally it goes in a home and very few people get to see it. So I'm very proud to have learned the techniques of printmaking, because it allows so many more people to appreciate the things that you have to offer.
Silk screens?
Those are silk screens and etchings and lithographs. So I'm real proud of the fact that I was able to study with Ole Nardmark on the etchings, and he was a Swedish, Ole Nardmark. He was a Swedish technician that the government Indian office had hired to teach Indian artists techniques in painting and mural painting and etching. In my case, he was a specialist in etching. So
Where was
we
that?
stayed at we stayed at Fort Sill Indian School while I was studying the etching, and he was there. And then there at that same time was a number of artists like Alan Hauser, Gerald Naylor, and Steve Mulpope, Spencer Asai, and Jack Hokie, and then there was Archie Black Owl. There's quite a number of Indian artists that became very prominent after that stayed there at Fort Sill Indian School and did paintings, worked with Mr. Nardmark on techniques.
The one that I own, I'm going to ask you to tell just a little bit about it. I believe I had called it the Medicine Man, but I believe you called it the Medicine Man Song.
Well, I did two medicine men pictures. Actually, they're medicine men, in fact, but I called one of them Prayer Song, and
This is the one that has the little bowls around it. He's mixing things near a campfire.
yeah, and the other has a buffalo skull painted, and the little fire going, as more or less as an altar. And the one that you have is called Medicine Song. In other words, Medicine Man singing a song. And those little bowls and all are herbs and colors of paint, different earth colors and so on. And so he's making prayers. Yeah, he's real colorful. I don't have those anymore.
It has a real spirit about it. You don't have any more?
No, as these silk screens and etchings run out, why they become more valuable. Some of the things that I had sold for.
Where is the original of this one? You remember?
I really don't know. They got lost in the
What
shuffle.
year did you do that, Woody?
In 1952. That's good for a piece back, isn't it?
Yes, but it's a beautiful thing. The spirit horse. Now do you have more than one of those?
I did about 3 horses, actually 2 that I called spirit horse. There were different drawings on the 2, but different drawings, and there were different sizes too. So they were so similar in feeling and all, being both blue horses and all. I call both of them spirit horse. So one's just larger than the other.
What is the Indian belief about the spirit horse?
Well, of course, the Indians, you know, they very quickly built legends around the horse when they got it from the Spanish, and didn't take them long to realize that the horse was a great personality, and they took to the horse readily, and it made them so they could get clear across the country hunting or doing the wars or whatever. They could travel much faster. So they were kind of stymied in making contacts with far-reaching areas from where they lived until they got the horse. When they got the horse, well, they was just all over the United States then, and they became very great horsemen, and they liked the horse, and they treated the horse just almost like a human, and well, with all the respect and everything. And fact is, the Sioux people's name for a horse is like a god, is just like calling him some kind of a god, and so the
think of it as a spirit.
is a spirit, yeah.
That takes them to their happy hunting ground.
Yeah.
He
Carries them. That's why they
soul
sometimes.
is taken away.
That's why sometimes they used to kill a horse that was owned by a great man that had died, so the horse and the soul of the horse and the soul of the man could go to the next world together, and the man could ride the horse.
Now, in your last request, is that supposed to be the horse that belonged to?
Yeah.
Indian?
It was a special horse. He requested. Yeah, he requested that he had a horse, and he wanted that particular horse to be led in that parade. So I put that all in that picture.
So that was his horse.
Yeah, that was his horse.
Mm-hmm.
And
the feathered hoofs, the feathered feet, is a mark of the spirit.
well, yeah, it gives the impression that it's not real, because when I paint those kind of horses or animals, blue deer and all, I'm not trying to paint a real image of the animal. In other words, realistic. I leave off with all the shadows, cast shadows, gradation of tones and things like that, and I use just 2 dimensions, flat line and color, and I try to get an impression of the spirit of the animal, and that's why I can paint them blue or any color that I choose. I happen to like blue because it's a spiritual type of color that goes with the picture very good.
Significant thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
before we leave the spotted wolf's last request and the horse there, I think one of the cleverest touches in that tells the whole story is the little corner of the American flag that is draped under the blanket, the Indian blanket, which shows that it was a warrior in the American wars.
yeah, you see, when they shipped the body of Spotted Wolf back, well, this big flag came with it, and so they took the flag and used it on the burial scaffold, and then of course when, like I said, and later, of course, why they put it on the casket for military burial.
Mm-hmm. It tells the whole story.
Yeah, tells the whole story. It's very interesting.
And then the spirit horse flying above it.
Yeah.
Means his soul is.
Yeah, that he's rising. That the soul of the horse is carrying the soul of the rider, so they're going into the next world. Interesting thing happened a few years ago. The editor and owner of Etude magazine was a very elderly person, and so I had done some artwork for his company by illustrating some things for Thurlow Lawrence, who was the composer by the Waters of Minnetonka, and he was a great composer and composed mostly Indian music. Well, the Etude magazine owner, can't think of his name now, but he had his secretary to write me a letter and stating that he was bedridden and he couldn't get around anymore, so he had them to take that blue horse, that spirit horse, and put it at the foot of his bed on the wall so he could lie there and look at that picture. And he said, his secretary wrote that he said when he died he was going to ride that horse into the next world. And it was just a matter of a few days later I got another letter from the secretary stating that he had passed away. But it was kind of interesting now. When,
and that was the music composer.
Yes, and that spirit horse seems to speak to a lot of people because some of the great people in the world own that picture, one of the original silk screens. Huh? Well, Winston Churchill, when he came over here, that's what he wanted. He saw the spirit horse, and there was Eisenhower, and then just a world of other very influential people. That horse is well known. It's in some of the finest homes in the world, and the United States. There was one. Somebody sent me a clipping from Los Angeles, about a half a page clipping, and the story was about a guy that built a very expensive home, and he designed his entire living room around this spirit horse, around that blue horse. So anyway, they wanted to give him the publicity, so they found the story with around the spirit horse. No, he didn't know.
He didn't, just liked the picture.
No, there's lots of people.
Well, it speaks to you somehow.
Yeah, it speaks.
It really does.
It's kind of like I tell the classes and when I teach that whenever God created man, why then man became a co-creator with God, because man began to create things too. And each time a person creates something, especially in my way of thinking, why he has to put a spirit with it, because that it's projecting his own self into it. So when a person paints a picture, if he has the right feeling and his aims and all towards his depiction, if everything is all right and he's successful, he has given that picture a spirit. And that spirit, when people look at it, will speak back to them. It'll speak to the people who look at it. And that's the difference between art, good art, and art that you might say is very skillfully done. There's lots of very wonderful pictures that are skillfully done. The techniques and all are just magnificent, but they don't speak, because the artist or the technician was so interested in the technique of the thing and didn't bother to put the spirit into it. So that's why you see a very simple picture sometimes that has great meaning and feeling for a person, and you can't really know why unless you understand that the spirit that was put into that picture by the artist is speaking out the same way it's reflecting. Now that goes for everything you do, whether it's baking a cake, making a pie, or cooking a meal, or just making a bedspread or cleaning a house. It's a spirit in which one approaches a chore or an endeavor. That's how it strikes other people, because when a person puts their vibrations on a thing in creation, why, that's part of him, and it's his attitude. We've been around people that talk to them a little while, and next thing you know, you go away. You're so tired, you just can't hardly stand it, and you don't know why. And apparently, they've sapped your energy. It doesn't mean that you dislike the person at all. It just means that they sapped your energy. And then you've had the experience, I'm sure, of talking to someone that just make you so invigorated when you leave there. You just want to, you just say, I like that person. I don't know why, but you feel good. And that's the spirit we're talking about when you create art or anything, crafts.
The vibrations between us
and what's
and
created.
what you are saying in the picture. I get that, Woody.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's got to be, because
Some of your
nothing.
paintings speak to me tremendously.
Yeah,
and when my daughter saw who has done a little artwork herself, and she's in Berkeley, California now, and when she saw your spirit horse, she stood and looked and looked and looked.
Yeah.
And at first it didn't mean so much to me. I was over looking at your picture on the last request.
Yeah.
And when I came back after being out of the room for several minutes, she still was standing, looking at your spirit
It has
horse.
great meaning to a lot of people, that spirit horse.
Evidently, it told her something.
Yeah, it tells a lot of people something, and you can put.
I was glad to get your philosophy of it just now.
And you can put a lot of healing powers into pictures, because
Oh,
those vibrations will just follow right back over the way that you intended them to be. That's why man has the power to create the things that he does.
This is a new thought to me, Woody. The fact that our actual vibrations can find a response from art, from pictures,
Oh yeah.
to another person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why art is very evident all over the world. Yeah, it's meaningful, from the very primitive man that pecked around on the stone walls and things. Caves. He put something there that other people come along and see.
I knew it was self-expression, but I didn't think about it meaning having an actual spiritual meaning.
Yeah, it has very much spiritual meaning, because it's impossible to create anything without having the vibrations there, good or bad. It doesn't make any difference.
Woody, when I interviewed Mr. Stone, who you know and is your friend, when I interviewed him, the terrapin seemed to be the animal that he chose to convey his ideas. Is yours the deer?
Well, I really
deer.
don't know. I just like to do them. I never did even think.
I was looking at the ones downstairs, and I counted 9 of
deer pictures.
Deer, and
I like to do them because they're graceful.
Which is your favorite one?
Of the deer?
Yes.
The
blue deer?
Well, yeah, they're all blue. I never paid anything any animals except of that
and
type.
they're spotted. They're such pretty little animals.
Yeah, I like to do deer. I like to do horses, and I used to paint a lot of buffalo. I haven't painted any lately, but I occasionally painted blue buffalo. And
you did?
They were very well received too. They're in different museums around over the country.
Your deer and the desert painting. You remember the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, deer and desert.
I think that conveys.
Yeah, that's just simply blue deer out on the desert.
Yes, but the desert.
Yeah, and anyone that sees my work knows full well that I'm not trying to make a realistic picture, because you just don't get a real blue deer. That just don't happen.
Well, I know, but you get the impression of the.
It's the impression that one gets. You see, a good artist should never try to paint everything just exactly like it is. If you want to do that, might as well take a photograph of it. So with the impression, an artist leaves an impression and something for the viewer to supply himself. Because if everything's there, that thing is not interesting. And it's that little bit of elusiveness that the artist has left out, either by choice or by being incapable of putting it all in there. And then the viewer can come along and pick up the vibrations of the artist and supply the rest of the picture. He can supply his own.
Woody, you were a dancer.
Yes.
And you have many pictures depicting
I paint lots. I
form.
paint lots of dancers. I used to paint more dancers than anything.
I had made a list of a few that I saw in your exhibit. The crow dancer, the feather dancer, the scalp dancer, the flute dancer, the deer dancer, the hummingbird dancer,
Yeah.
which is beautiful, the tail dancer, and the dog soldier dancer.
Yeah.
What's the dog soldier?
Well, it was kind of like the police of the group, and they weren't. They were kind of leaders, just like
I see.
a police force around
Oh,
the Indians.
Mhm.
And then they, of course, had their society where that they belonged to, and they were all one group that was vowed to protect one another and protect the people in the tribe, and they in general just looked after the welfare of the whole tribe, and so they called them dog soldiers. Just to see, the dog was very well thought of animal too, because
Mhm.
he carried, he hunted and he watched and guarded them. If somebody's sneaking up at night, why they'd warn them. Then he would, like I say, help. Before they got horses, they used dogs to help carry and drag things on the trail.
Mhm.
So dog soldiers, very interesting society of men at the time.
I wasn't familiar with that, so I didn't get the meaning of the picture.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't familiar with that term.
Yeah.
I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
And your eagle dancer, isn't that your most popular one of the dancers?
Well, it's very popular, and of course the eagle dance was made theoretically to teach young. It shows the old eagle teaching a young eagle to dance. I mean to get ready to fly, and they do it through a dance. See, everything dances. All the animals, birds, all have dances. Everything has a dance, has a ritual, and a rhythm, and it doesn't make any difference what it is. Everything that exists, and animal, insects, birds, fish, everything dances. Everything has a ritualistic dance, and they perform these dances. This bird dance, eagle dance, and there's prairie chicken dances, and all kinds of bird dances. And prairie chickens, and see the prairie chickens, they have a very beautiful dance, and so does the old turkey gobbler and all. They when they're strutting, and if you watch them certain times, they've got a real good dance. Yeah, a real rhythm.
Woody, you have 2 or 3 pictures on the peyote ceremony. Tell us something about that.
About which?
The picture of the peyote ceremony.
Well, I have the picture there of peyote singers, and then I have the peyote bird, which is a messenger bird. The idea is that the messenger bird carries your prayers to God. When you're praying and all, well, this messenger bird carries the prayers up to God and so on. It's a legendary. It's blue. Yeah, most of them are blue. Again, the spirit, and so it's a very interesting bird to draw. Of course, it's all imaginary, but one can use his imagination to draw a bird that he thinks should be the one to carry prayers.
Right.
So you can make him pretty as he wants.
Okay. Well, yours is a very leaves a very wonderful impression of the fact that he's going rapidly to God.
I painted lots of peyote birds, and they're in museums in different parts of the country. And fact is, Gilcrease Museum has quite a number of peyote pictures that I painted, and I even painted a peyote bird up over the entrance when they first built the museum.
Oh, I didn't know.
And it's still there.
Is it the peyote ceremony? Do the Indians still use that song?
Oh yes, peyote's even growing stronger and stronger all the time.
It is.
Yeah, peyote's not like people think about. They always talking about hallucinations and all like that. my estimation, of course, nobody can explain for everybody else, but I can just give my notion about it. The peyote itself, yeah, the peyote itself is not the thing. See, it's a Christian religion. This peyote is almost totally Christian religion, and it's the Indians' concept of the Christian religion and put in terms that they can understand. Now, peyote itself had been used probably for thousands of years by Indians in Mexico, but that doesn't have anything to do with the peyote meetings of the American Indian that started in Oklahoma.
Well, is it a real hallucinatory?
As far as I know, it doesn't. You could eat a handful or a bushel basketful. It's give you a bellyache, but at the same time, when you get in a ritual, why you take either one or as many those peyotes as you want, and it probably wouldn't do anything to you or make you feel any different if you were just sitting in your front room and so on, or out visiting. But see, it's a ritual that has a difference, because when you sit there in devout prayer, meditation, hear beautiful songs and the drum and the rattle going, look at the fire and the altar, and hear all of the beautiful things that the different ones say, and they place a peyote, generally a large peyote button, on the altar, and that represents Christ. And like I say, it's just practically all Christian religion. So then you get into a ritual like that and sit there for a few hours, and it doesn't make any difference whether you eat any peyote or not, because peyote's not the one that does it. It's got a bad name back early when they outlawed it and all, but through the efforts of Clark Whistler and some of the prominent anthropologists with the Smithsonian Institute, they had that chemically analyzed and found that it was non-habit forming and non-injurious to your health and a whole bunch of things. So then they finally got around to letting the Indians go ahead and worship.
It isn't hallucination, then it is the real.
It's more the ritual.
Mm-hmm.
The ritual could be what they talk about hallucinations. But you see, I can point it out this way. Have you ever been to a Holy Roller meeting?
Yeah.
You see a shout and a roll on the floor, talk unknown tongues and all. Now, I'm not pointing fun at them at all. I admire them greatly, because anybody that can get smitten with the Holy Spirit, I'm for it. Right. And so the holiness people, they become smitten with the Holy Spirit, and they do those things. And then there's the Quakers, one of our great churches in the United States, one that dealt, I guess, more fairly with the American Indians than any other group. And
they were more concerned, I think.
They don't take any kind of thing, and then that's why they call them Quakers. They start quaking and going on, and then up north they got the Shakers. They got a bunch of bells, like little dinner bells on a table, and then as they begin to get the Holy Spirit, why they'll dance by and pick up a bell and rattle it. And see, there's all kinds of things like that, but the Indian doesn't. He sits there, and whether he takes any peyote or not, it's a ritual. It makes the difference, and then people get to thinking that it's
really
bad.
Is the moving of the spirit on their mind.
Yeah, if anybody get up about 2 o'clock every night, every morning, and go make himself comfortable and meditate for a few minutes every night, and try to meditate for at least finally get it up to maybe 15 minutes, then he'd know what it's all about himself, because he'd have the Holy Spirit. He'd have everything that and if somebody could see in his mind, they'd probably say he's hallucinating, and he's just sitting there in meditation and prayer. And that's generally how I look at peyote.
And that's in your pictures?
Yeah, that's the way I paint my pictures. I paint them for the beauty of song and the spirit that the people are approaching, trying to become one, and thinking with God. And Peyote is one of the nicest religions I know about, and I've been to a lot of different churches. Fact is, the 6 years I spent at Wichita at Indian school, that was a church school, so I had to take so much theology in order to go to school there. So,
It's required by the.
yeah, it's required. It was a required subject. And
So that gave you a background in
yeah,
this
and
philosophy and this thinking.
get through there, then I go to a Baptist college to teach.
So you had it all around, didn't you?
Well, I learned quite a bit about religion. I learned that one's devoutness and prayer and meditation can get them an awful long ways
Really?
with God and with other people, association.
And your dancing, you also do other forms such as the designs for stained glass windows. I read that
Yeah,
somewhere.
I did some designs for stained glass window. Of course, I didn't follow that as a trade.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted some stained glass
What
windows in a
windows have you
chapel.
done?
Well, a church in Muskogee at Bacone, they're building this nice new church there. So I designed the windows for
What
that
church
church.
is that with?
That's out at the Bacone College. And yeah. And
Is
I
it
have,
on the grounds there?
yeah, it's on the grounds there, and the rose windows, I think 13 or 14 feet across. It's up over the baptistry. I think it's very beautiful. I like to look at it.
Did you
the
get
colors.
your idea from the rose window and that?
No, I got the idea from the peyote.
You did?
Yeah, it's a peyote window. I even have the peyote birds in it, and the altars, and the Christ, which is represented by the plant. It's a beautiful thing. Of course, I never told anybody that it was a peyote window. I just made a beautiful window, but most of the Indians knew it anyway. When they look at it, they could see it.
The Indians get it.
Yeah, the Indians got it, and sometimes they used to.
But that is the
Some-
peyote bird then.
Yeah, well, I had the 4 directions, and all, in the
north.
yeah. And sometimes the old folks, Indians, would come and they'd stand in front of that window and make prayers because they thought it was real nice to see some of their own designs and something that they believed in and had accepted from the white man, the story of Christ, and then to see it in church, in a way that they could understand it. And with their own type of symbolism. See, the Christ symbolically is like a cross. That's a Christian religion, is a cross.
And so your peyote bird.
And so the peyote is like a representation of Christ.
The wings outspread makes it.
Well, the peyote itself, is kind of like a sacrament, and so it's all, like I said a while ago, just a very, very good rendition in Christianity.
Right.
Yeah. So that window's got all of that in it.
Who is Black Owl?
Archie Black Owl.
You
He's
did that wonderful.
yeah.
His face, Woody.
Yeah, he had a very fine face, and I put on the first, or instigated the first National Indian Art Show at Philbrook in 1945, and we were doing some Indian dances for the opening and all. And Archie was a dancer, and he was also a good artist at the time. So he was there, so I drew this picture of Archie then. That was 1945, but I didn't finish it until 1968. I was looking through my portfolio and happened to run on to drawing. I thought, well, I'm going to finish old Archie now, so I went to work and finished the picture, and I just dated it 1968, but it was actually
Really,
supposed to have been about 45.
Your inspiration came early.
Yeah. Because he's like me, he got a lot older, and
Well, I wondered
was
at
your
what
age.
age.
Yeah.
If it was one of
I'd
your earlier
imagine
ones.
he was about 35 at the time I made the drawings, the color
But sometimes
sketches.
on his painting, you don't get the impression that age is
Yeah.
either young or old.
Yeah, that's right.
It's, but it's a face of character.
Yeah.
Of
He had a very fine face.
What did he do, Woody? What does that face tell us?
Well, it just gives
Of his
you
mind.
an idea of an Indian, and I try to always get a spiritual quality in my work,
What
and
I'm
so
after now.
that was my idea of an Indian that whether one meets all the requirements in actual life is he's there, and it could be that his spiritual powers not everybody sees.
Right.
They have to feel what's there through their impressions of sight and more than that really. But what I tried to do was to portray an American Indian of Oklahoma that was kind of representational. Not really, because a person that's got a fine face like Archie Blackowl, Roman nose type, is not the average type at all. Like the fellow on the Buffalo Nickel, that's not a general Indian face at all.
No.
And they far from it.
Enough,
but that's what we think of as a face like Archie's to represent the American Indian. It could be that the guy on the Buffalo Nickel kind of helped that idea some.
Who did that Buffalo Nickel? I forgot.
Frazier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
I believe it's Frazier. And
What are your plans now? Do you have any?
no, I don't really have any too much plans.
Aren't you
Just
connected
work.
with the Smithsonian now?
No, I'm not connected with anyone. I just do my artwork by working on my prints and getting them out all over the country still, but not as much as I did 25 years ago or so, when I had from 30 to 50 art shows a month in colleges. That kept me pretty busy. Yeah, but I had it kind of streamlined. I had boxes made so I could send the whole show out, and at that time I could send a good sized show out, full show through the post offices, and I can't do that anymore because they changed the size, the overall size and the weights. But I could ship out from a fourth class post office just about the entire show, and it made it easy because then they'd be delivered right to the door. But shipping got so bad I just hated to fool with it anymore. And so I just go around and have art shows mostly now, just like here, the Heritage.
But you're doing well here.
Yeah. There people
I
like.
think Oklahoma City is gaining in their appreciation of these things, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I think that it's like I said, that my art has helped stimulate more people to appreciate Indian art than probably any other thing going on.
Did you know O.C. Blue Eagle?
AC, yeah.
AC,
oh, we
yes,
were good. We were good friends. See, we went to school. Shalaka was there at least at the same time, and then he went. After he got through school, he went to Bacone, and when he wanted to quit Bacone and go to painting, why he got me to come over and take his place. So we were real good friends. So AC was at Bacone before I was.
Well, wasn't he connected with the newspaper?
No,
in
not
some way?
not that I know about.
I thought there was a column. It must have been.
Oh yeah, he used to have a little bit. Well, he had a television deal for children.
Yeah.
And gather all the little children around, and he'd tell them stories about the animals and Indian legends and all. He was very good at it. He was a real large man himself, but he was jovial.
I met him once.
And he liked to tell jokes. And he liked to laugh and talk. Yeah, very wonderful. And he did an awful lot to stimulate good feeling for the Indian all across the country.
I believe I read somewhere that they have made an AC Blue Eagle room
Yeah,
in the Smithsonian.
in the
now.
Smithsonian. That's right.
And who else is
Well,
the
that's
hangings are in there now?
well, I don't know, but I think he's the only one. It's his room. There may be some other things there.
I had heard that Jerome Tiger
Could be.
was there, and your name was in the article that I read.
Yeah, could
Do
be.
you have some hanging there?
I don't know. I really don't know. I know they came by about a year or so ago and gathering all kinds of information for that, but I don't know
I just
whatever
wondered
developed.
which ones they decided to hang.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure this article was correct. It was in an art magazine. It was at the time that the AC Blue Eagle room was designated.
Yeah.
And did you know Jerome Tiger?
No, I didn't know Jerome. See, I was out west at that time. I moved out.
His brother, I believe, is painting something.
Yeah, Johnny's painting. And see, I'd been back from living out west. It'll be 3 years in January. I was out there a good long time. And a lot of these young guys come along, grew up, developed, into arts while I was gone. And some of them I met, and some of them I didn't. Most of them I didn't meet them because I hardly ever came back to Oklahoma when I was living out there. Sometimes, I went 8 years one time without ever coming back to Oklahoma. So you see, there's a lot of people young folks can, yeah, a lot of young folks can grow up in 8 years. And I was out there a lot longer than that too. But
I wanted to talk just a little bit about the Gilchrist.
Well, Gilchrist,
connection.
yeah, he got me to come over and help him make that collection. And so I told him he'd ought to get somebody else that's more school for that, but he seemed to be set on me, so he worked on me for about a year, and I finally decided to go to work with him, help him make that collection. And there was a barn there at the time where the museum is, and he told me what he had in mind, building a big museum. And so we set to work making the collection of paintings and all to go into that. And things were real inexpensive at the time because it was right after World War II. And there's lots of great collections came on the market. And just some terrific collections. One of the greatest was the Dr. Cole collection in New York. And there's where all the Remingtons and Russells, mainly Russells and all came.
That's where they came from.
And it seems like that every time Russell needed a little money or saw something real fine, Indian arts and crafts, buckskin beadwork and things of that kind, war bonnets, well, he'd gather it up and send it to Dr. Cole. So besides a great many of Russell paintings and Remington paintings in the Cole collection, there's a terrific amount of very valuable buckskin beadwork type things, war bonnets and all of that, which is just absolutely just priceless today. Well, like I say, there were so many collections came on the market, and I was out looking for them and finding a lot of them. And even some of the finest things we got got 200 George Catlin's paintings from. Yeah, got those from the Phelps Museum in England, and didn't pay very much for them. I think it was something like $200 a piece. And then we got 50 watercolors of Catlin's from England. And I think there was $50 a piece. $50 the watercolor paintings. So that was right after the war, and of course the values, concepts had changed so radically, and people was needing money. Some countries were, and so anyway, a lot of that stuff was gotten very inexpensive, and then we collected the old artist of Taos. There's burning house Strauss, Blumenschein, Phelps, Kaus, Sharp, and all of those great old painters of the Taos, New Mexico area. And fact is, I got from Mr. Gilcrease at one time 450 paintings from Mr. Sharp at one time, and had bought some larger works from him before. But this last purchase was made with the idea that we're going to reconstruct his studio sometime at Gilcrease Museum, and so we bought with the collection all of his easels and all of his paraphernalia, costumes, and everything in his studio, and so that someday will probably be reconstructed at Gilcrease, show how Mr. Sharp had his studio arranged. And so Mr. Sharp was very reasonable with his prices on those 450 paintings, because he was 97 at the time, and he wanted to see his work held together in a big museum. So I thought it was real nice. So
you have quite a few paintings there too.
I've got let's see, I have I believe it's 179. My original paintings are there in the Gilcrease too.
Oh my.
And but they have.
What are some of them, Woody?
Oh, it's just the same as I've always done: deer, animals, dances, and ceremonies. But there's so so much work that we collected during that time that it'd be impossible to begin to show very much of it with the space they have. Of course, they're enlarging the place all the time. Mr. Gilcrease felt that it should go to some city or town or state to perpetuate it, and he wanted a kind of a guarantee, and by letting some city have it, he offered it to Texas and Austin, and they wouldn't build a building. They'd take the collection all right, but they wouldn't agree to build the building. And finally got Tulsa to agree to build the buildings, or continue building the buildings and take it over. So they bought the collection for something like, I understand, it's $17 million. Mm-hmm. And then, but later, Mr. Gilcrease came along with some endowment funds of one kind or another, and I think arrested the bonds, so that he, in effect, gave him the museum in the collection. So it's a real fine museum. It's one of the best of its kind in the entire world.
I think so.
They got so much stuff there, like I said a while ago, that just take an awful long time to show it all. Yeah. Yeah, lots of it in storage.
There's so much there.
Most of it's in storage. Yeah, oh, they got so much in storage. See, when I was collecting there with Gilcrease, we had one floor that paid storage, big storage firm. We had stored all kinds of stuff up there. Just didn't have anywhere to put it otherwise. Well, I think that's going to run out over there.
We thank you. Well, we've got plenty of tape, but I know you're tired, and I also know there are people downstairs that are wanting to talk with you about your pictures. I appreciate so much the time you've given us this morning, Woody, and I especially am glad I got to do it and to say I know Woody Crumbo, because I've admired your work for so long.
Well, thank you.
And would you like to sign off now?
Well, I hope this wasn't too rambling a conversation, and I'm Woody Crumbo, and I'll be closing now. And
thank you so much, Woody. This is Mary B. Roberts signing off. This tape will be kept in the Oklahoma Historical Collection of tapes, and the living voice of Woody Crumbo will be preserved. This is Mary B. Roberts signing off. Thank you.